Imagine a single switch capable of plunging the global economy into darkness overnight. One single button that, if triggered, could send gas prices skyrocketing, empty supermarket shelves, and threaten millions of jobs across the planet. This switch doesn't come from a movie. It exists, and it isn't hidden inside a bunker, but visible on any world map. It's a strait barely 50 kilometers wide. And right now, some extremely nervous fingers are getting dangerously close to that button. There are places on this planet we prefer not to look at for too long. Places where the official map and reality no longer truly match. The Strait of Hormuz is one of them, 50 kilometers wide. The almost mandatory exit route for oil from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. But Hormuz is not just a maritime route. It is a permanent zone of tension where contradictory military, economic, and geopolitical interests have collided for decades. In this video, we're going to understand why this small maritime passage can, by itself, make the entire planet tremble, why some people are willing to die to control it, and what would actually happen for every one of us if this passage closed tomorrow morning. To understand the danger, you first have to realize just how vital this strait is. Forget the images of pipelines crossing deserts. The real oil highway is on the water, and Hormuz is the most important toll booth in the world. The numbers are staggering: 21 million barrels per day, 1/5 of the world's oil consumption, 1/3 of global maritime oil trade, and 20% of the planet's liquefied natural gas. But to truly understand what that means, think about this. Every morning at dawn, dozens of supertankers line up. Some are 300 meters long. They carry millions of liters of crude oil, and every single one of them must pass through this 50-kilometer corridor, monitored from both sides by rival military forces, before reaching open ocean. Day after day, without interruption. For decades. Where does all this go? China, India, Japan, South Korea. These industrial powers depend directly on this corridor. More than 80% of the hydrocarbons crossing the strait are destined for them. Europe is slightly less exposed, but in a globalized economy, nobody is truly safe. Experts call this a choke point, a bottleneck. Imagine a 10-lane highway suddenly narrowing into a small country road. The slightest problem, and chaos begins. Hormuz is exactly that country road for global energy. Before imagining the worst, you need to know that the worst has almost already happened. It's 1984. The Iran-Iraq war has already been raging for 4 years. Both sides decide to strike where it hurts the most: oil tankers. This becomes known as the tanker war. Over 5 years, more than 500 civilian ships are attacked in the Persian Gulf. Entire crews die. Insurance companies refuse to cover ships. Oil prices spiral out of control. The United States eventually begins militarily escorting Kuwaiti tankers. The American and Iranian navies come face to face. In 1988, an American warship accidentally destroys an Iranian civilian Airbus, 290 civilians killed. The world came dangerously close to a global crisis, not once, several times, and since then, the tension has never truly disappeared. In 2019, oil tankers are mysteriously sabotaged inside the strait. In 2021, Iran seizes a Vietnamese-flagged tanker. In 2023, naval incidents multiply. Drones, provocations, standoffs at sea. This is not fiction. It is the permanent reality of this region. Now let's imagine the worst. Not war, just a prolonged closure. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Blocking Hormuz isn't just geopolitical pressure. It means cutting an artery of the global economy. The consequences would be immediate and cascading. First domino, exploding oil prices. Markets would panic. Some scenarios project oil prices above $120 per barrel within hours, and you would feel that increase directly at the gas station. But that would only be the beginning. Global maritime shipping costs would multiply by 2 or 3. Insurance companies would refuse to cover ships entering the zone. Result: the price of everything would rise. Electronic components, food, raw materials. A generalized inflation wave that would destroy purchasing power everywhere. For Asian countries, the situation would become even more critical. Japan imports 90% of its energy. South Korea, the same. These economies do not have infinite reserves. A prolonged interruption would no longer be a matter of price, but economic survival. Factories shutting down, blackouts, brutal collapse. And there's another angle almost nobody talks about. The underwater internet cables running through this region. An attack against these infrastructures would disrupt communications and financial transactions across the entire area. In a world where trillions of dollars move every day through digital networks, this would become another bomb. How did we get here? On one side, Iran, the northern coast of the strait, an enormous strategic position. For Tehran, and especially for the Revolutionary Guards, the strait is both a vital resource and a weapon. When Iran feels strangled by sanctions, it threatens to close the passage. It is its most powerful leverage against the entire world. On the other side, the United States. The Fifth Fleet is stationed in Bahrain, right next door. Its mission: guarantee freedom of commerce. For Washington, any blockade attempt would be considered an act of war. But between the two, there are all the others. Saudi Arabia watching nervously. The Emirates calculating. Israel observing. China importing massive quantities while trying not to choose a side. Iran knows it cannot win a conventional war, so it plays an asymmetric strategy. No need to sink an aircraft carrier. It only needs to make the passage too dangerous, too expensive, too risky. How? Naval mines, missile-equipped speedboats, kamikaze drones, anti-ship missiles launched from the coast, an invisible war of attrition. The objective is not to win a war. It is to transform the strait into a zone of chaos, where no ship owner wants to send vessels anymore. Faced with this risk, an obvious question appears: why not bypass the problem? The short answer: alternatives exist, but they are massively insufficient. Saudi Arabia invested billions into its east-west pipeline, 7 million barrels per day. The Emirates built the Habshan-Fujairah pipeline, 1.5 to 1.8 million barrels per day. Together, roughly 9 million barrels. Hormuz handles 21 million per day. Imagine Saudi Arabia urgently building emergency pipelines across the desert, hoping nobody closes the passage tomorrow morning. That is exactly what has been happening for years. Kuwait, Bahrain, Iraq, Qatar, they have almost no alternative routes. A blockade would mean a near total shutdown of their exports. The conclusion is brutal. Despite all the efforts and all the billions invested, the global economy remains suspended on this corridor only a few kilometers wide. We are therefore facing an explosive equation. On one side, an economic artery the world cannot live without. On the other, extreme geopolitical tensions with actors ready to use this route as a weapon. And in the middle, us, billions of people filling our gas tanks, buying groceries, turning on lights, never realizing that all of it depends on a 50-kilometer corridor monitored by missiles. Every ship seizure, every military maneuver, every aggressive declaration can become the spark. The question is no longer whether a crisis can erupt in Hormuz, but rather when and how. So here is the question I leave you with. Can diplomacy still defuse this ticking time bomb, or are we helplessly witnessing the beginning of an inevitable crisis? If this analysis opened your eyes to what the media doesn't truly show, subscribe and activate the bell. Every week, we dive into the forbidden zones the world prefers to ignore.